Hello. In this module, we will discuss how to add a crew leader or employer into the database, as well as the basics of their profile once they are in. So let's begin by double-clicking on our desktop shortcut, which of course takes us to the starting form. Now, what if, say, we receive a form that needs to be entered from someone who does not have an up-to-date 2019 time-stamped profile in our database? Well, we would simply have to add them. Now, you'll notice that I will be doing this primarily for the employer side of the inspector database. However, the crew leader side of the inspector database is virtually identical. So, again, some of the individual forms may look a bit different, but the structure and the process are in fact the same. So let's click on Add Employer, and you'll notice a couple of things right off the bat. First of all, if you want, try dragging your form up to the top of the screen or selecting the Maximize button here to make sure that your scroll bar appears and you have access to all of it. Next, you'll notice that there's a great deal of text boxes and only a few drop downs. That's going to change, but in the meantime, you can use the Finder box to select one of the forms that we already have profiles for, and you can, let's see here, Hillside Apples, and you can pre-fill out with old information your existing form. Now, you'll notice that some of these drop-downs, there we go. You'll notice that some of these drop-downs, there we go, have different variations on different staff lists. For example, the inspectors has a list of inspectors, the outreach, a list of outreach personnel. If there's something missing from one of these drop-downs, don't try to add it in yourself. Just make sure that you inform the supervisor of the MSFW program and they will get it where it needs to go. So let's replace the name, AAA test, and this is going to be our new employer. So in order to get this employer into the system, we need to click on Make New Record in order to finalize the information and basically take a snapshot of what we've entered here and add it into the database. So we click Make New Record, and then we click Save and Close. However, if we wanted, we could go and add another one in and just select Make New Record again, but that's of course up to you. So once again, to finalize it, we click Make New Record and then the Close button there. So you'll notice that our employer has not been added to the list, and that's okay. We just need to reload the form. Now we can click Save and Close and then reload the entire database, but what I prefer to do is simply press the F5 button on the keyboard, which will manually refresh the form here without needing to reload it. And there it is, AAA test with a timestamp of August 23rd, 2019 at 8:34 a.m. We click on that, and then we type in the year. Be sure to type in the year because from between this information is going to be how the database looks up not just the correct employer, but also the correct moment in time for the correct information. Now we're going to click on Employer. And that's going to actually bring up two forms that are going to become very familiar to you as you use the inspector database. The first one, Year Profile, has some at-a-glance information, most of which should be fairly familiar as we just entered it, but also you'll notice there's a blank for services. We'll talk more about services in a future module. Then, this is going to be the inspector palette. Effectively, this command palette is going to contain a number of command buttons, most of which will include forms, outreach information, if you need to enter any outreach information, referral information, etc. Most of the basic database entry, the database data entry, is going to take place in these particular forms. So again, let's say that AAA Test in 2019 sends in their labor camp application. We would open their year profile here, and we would click on Labor Camp Application. And here it is. Now you'll notice with Labor Camp Application, as with almost all of the forms that you will encounter in this database, that first of all, even though they don't necessarily look like the paper form that you are holding in your hand, the information that you have to enter should be pretty much down the line. So just go through and type in all the information that you like. You'll notice also that whenever possible, we will use drop-downs, or in this case, multi-check drop-downs. And if that is the case, just make sure that if you check boxes, singular boxes or multiple boxes, you select OK in order to put both entries in there. So it's an extra step, but you will get used to it very quickly. And of course, you'll also notice that instead of signature blanks, you'll just see a checkbox or not a checkbox. This is because we wanted to make the digital form as close to the physical form as possible, while still making allowances for people who will write strange or incorrect things into their form. So rather than have you reproduce a legally binding signature on a legal form, simply check the box that it was appropriately signed, and then enter the date that it was signed or other pertinent information. You'll also see at the bottom that there are 3 buttons: Save and Close, Save and New, and Close Without Saving. Save and Close is going to finalize the existing form, update its timestamp, staff name, and employer information, and then close out of the existing form. Save and New will do everything that Save and Close does, except instead of closing, it will simply bring up a blank form for you to add additional information into the database. Close Without Saving, of course, or the X button. Close Without Saving is for when you want to close the form and not finalize the information that you have put in there. So, you'll also notice that at the bottom of your screen, there are a number of records and some arrows pointing left and right. For example, you will notice that in this particular application, it says 177 of 177, meaning we are on the final record of 177 different forms. Now, if you click the backwards, the forwards, the first, or the last record buttons, again, backwards, forwards, first, and last, or of course, type in a particular number for a record, you will go to the appropriate record in the database. This is going to be how you can go back into the database and make individual changes or view previous information. Just be aware that if you select Save and Close while a different form is available rather than the one you were originally working on, the database will overwrite its existing timestamp, employer code, and staff information with the employer code, timestamp, and staff information that you are currently open in. So, just make sure that even if you make some small basic changes here, you always return to the newest record and then select Close Without Saving. Don't worry, Access is really good about saving information to previously created records. So even if you select Close Without Saving, if you're changing a previous record, like let's say I'm changing the camp address here to something different, I won't of course, I can still go all the way to the end and then click Close Without Saving. Saving, in this particular context, simply means that it will finalize new information and overwrite existing information with your employer code, timestamp, and staff credentials. So, for now, we're going to click Close Without Saving. It may ask you if you wish to delete an existing record. Don't panic if you see that, because that's simply saying that the final record that was automatically added, because every time you click one of these buttons it adds a new blank record, will simply not be saved. So we click yes. That closes out of that form, and now we are free to add additional reports or information here, or to select the Save and Close button here to close out of our new year profile.